This podcast is recorded at the University of Sydney's Camperdown campus on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. They've been discovering and sharing knowledge here for tens of thousands of years. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
So welcome to my kitchen. It's something between a commercial and a home kitchen. So we have a cooking area and here a long stainless steel bench where I do most of my prep work. I do like to keep it very minimalistic so that there is a lot of bench space to work on. My name is Marzio Lanzini. I'm a chef and I work at the Charles Perkins Centre in Sydney Uni. My job is to try and get some of the nutrition science involved in the project of Health for Life into manageable and practical nuggets in the form of workshops and videos, blogs for users to be able to then put into their life and change the way they eat. My background has been mostly in fine dining. I started my culinary journey quite early in my parents' restaurant and then got inspired to cooking into higher caliber kitchens around Europe and eventually in Sydney. It is quite strange to be a chef inside a university, especially a building like the Charles Perkins Centre that is dedicated purely to science and medicine. At the beginning I was a fish out of water, but I think with enough content now going out, I'm becoming a bit more familiar and part of the family, so to speak. Today I want to show you a dish that is not only nutritious but familiar to most people and also still very delicious despite taking out some of the core ingredients of this dish. It's a lentil bolognese. The reason I used lentils is because they are high in vegetable protein. A lot of Italians will raise their nose at lentil bolognese served with wholemeal pasta, but I think their opinion changes when they taste it.
What does a regular day look like for Australian adults? You might wake up just in time to get ready for work. If you have breakfast at all, it might come out of a cardboard box. You're probably chugging caffeine instead of water, which continues for your long work day spent in a polluted city centre. If you've got time, you might swing by the gym on the way home, and then it's a few glasses of wine after some takeaway food and then off to bed. Fundamentally, this isn't working. Most people over the age of 65 have at least 2 chronic health conditions, which are probably avoidable. And some believe if we don't get these conditions under control, healthcare will be so expensive that by 2050, countries won't be able to fund anything but healthcare. So what do? Enter Luigi Fontana, who wants to redesign the way we live. Luigi is a professor of medicine and nutrition at the University of Sydney. Now, Luigi, you wanted Australia's approach to healthcare to change quite dramatically, and you've run a trial to see what it might look like. Tell us about the Asana experiment.
So the Asana experiment is composed of 3 big elements. One is a preventative medical approach using basically lifestyle medicine together with health assessment, chronic disease planning, and then patient activation. It's very important to activate the patients, to take care and control of their health. And data science with the gamification to make the process more fun.
So to keep the patient engaged in the process of preventatively looking after their health.
Learning, yes.
So why do we need something like the Asana experiment? What are we trying to replace or update?
Because typically you go to see your doctor when you are sick, when you already have a disease, instead of we think, you should go to your doctor 10, 15 years before you develop a disease. And it's very easy at that point, to bring back the values to the normals and therefore stop the accumulation of metabolic molecular damage that is leading to multiple chronic diseases.
So this is really preemptive medicine intervention, getting ahead of it. And on the specifics of the metabolic diseases that you, in a sense, could anticipate and intervened to stop. What were you seeing there as far as improvements were concerned?
There were improvements in all the cardiometabolic risk factor, cholesterol, blood pressure, glucose, and many others, because typically we think, that cancer, dementia, cardiovascular disease, liver disease, kidney disease, they are separate disease, and they are if you wait them to fully develop. But, what we found in the biology of aging field that, I help funding is that many of these common chronic disease, they share a common metabolic substrate. Mm-hmm. And so if you work well in advance, you are preventing all of them together. So breast cancer, colon cancer, diabetic nephropathy, vascular dementia, fatty liver disease, stroke, coronary heart disease. They are the same disease in some way.
So how many patients have been involved in this so far?
It was 6,000 patients.
And what have you seen?
So the striking fact was a 51% reduction in hospitalization. 51% reduction in hospitalization is huge. So basically, it was a saving of $9 million per year. If you scale it up at the national level, we are talking about 30 billion saved per year.
So it saves money, but it sounds like it would cost quite a bit up front. How much does it cost per patient to be involved with this?
You're right. The cost basically, it was much higher than the usual fee-for-service primary care that is on average is $500 per person. Instead of with this model, it was $2,000 per person. But because on average, basically, if you get admitted to the hospital in Australia is around $6,000, then you see that, you're going to have a huge saving.
The savings then come to bear. And what have health authorities said to you about the kind of outcomes that you've seen and published on the back of this?
Everybody's excited, but it takes a lot of energy to change a system, as you know, something that is basically for decades or more than decades has been the norm. I mean, ideally, we should redo this experiment because this was done in a high SES. Now I think it will be nice to repeat this one in a low SES and see the results, how much we can save and, yes.
Works across all demographic backgrounds, particularly those demographics which have poorer health outcomes to start with, right? In talking with you, I know you're very interested in food and in cooking, and that's part of the strategy here of this program, isn't it? Training people how to eat in a way that's really beneficial to your health. What makes food so important in preemptively warding off bad health?
Before I joined the University of Sydney, I worked for 18 years at Washington University in St. Louis, that is one of the top medical schools in the US. And there I studied basically calorie restriction with optimal nutrition. Is the most powerful intervention to delay aging. So in animal models, you can increase lifespan up to 50%. It's like if a human being, instead of living 80 years, would live 130, 140 years in good health. So there is no doubt, if you envision like a chess game, nutrition is the king. And exercise is the queen. Now, remarkably, we've got a chef in residence at the Charles Perkins Centre. What does Chef Marzio's work look like? Well, we have this crazy idea that if you prescribe a diet to someone and you say, you have to eat more vegetables and fish and legumes and whole grains, most people have a very loose idea of how to put together a healthy, tasty meal. Because the idea that, eating healthy means eating, boring food is not true. And Marzio is working with me to redesign some of these healthy cooking recipes. And we are going to schools because I'm convinced that one of the other key factors to make our healthcare system sustainable and our nation more healthy basically is also education. We should basically teach starting from year one and even the university, I believe that every student, even if you are a law student or a business student, you should have a solid understanding of healthy nutrition, healthy exercise, stress reduction, good sleep, all these factors that are essential for every human being to stay healthy, to be more functional, more proficient, more creative.
So I'm going to pull together all the ingredients. We have some vegetable stock, some lentils, red split lentils, which I soaked last night, some chopped crushed tomatoes, chopped onion, walnuts, miso paste, tomato paste, olive oil, carrots, and celery. The aha moment for me in this journey to a more nutrition and healthier cooking has probably been this bolognese, simply for the fact that I do come from a family with generational pride in cooking bolognese, and being able to do one that still passed the mama test was a big aha moment for me. It uses a couple of smart tricks to get around the lack of texture from meat and the lack of moreish umami mouthfeel and flavor that comes from mincemeat, such as some crushed walnuts for texture and the so-called secret ingredient, which is miso paste. So it allows you to add salt to the dish, but at the same time it comes with a lot of umami and some nutrition as well. The problem with the way we eat today is the ultra-processed food is very high, even in young children, from packaged breads and yogurts and all these pre-made items. Other than being very harmful to the environment for the packaging and all that, the aim for these companies is obviously to make them as cheap as they can, as flavorful as they can. And nutrition doesn't really come in other than it being a marketing stunt and a way to get you to buy it to make you think it's healthy. The processing levels of food have definitely changed the way we eat. Convenience is the dangling carrot, and time restraint is what kind of closes the loop. I think that with a little bit extra knowledge on how to cook these ingredients in a timely fashion and organize your week, and also knowing that at the end of that there is a tasty meal and not something that you kind of don't really want to come home to, makes it realistic to eat healthy and still cook with real produce. It's just that we have kind of forgotten and moved away from it so much that it seems like such an uphill struggle to get back to it. But in small steps, I think, especially starting with younger generation and in schools, I think we can get there.
Part of what I would suspect is that, people are just wanting to be able to make food quickly and convenient. I mean, fast food is enormous now, but takeaway food or pre-packaged food and the like. To what extent are you concerned that convenience is standing in the way of health?
Yeah, we know that, ultra-processed food is a major problem. There are studies in US where 60% of daily calories of children is from ultra-processed food. So believe it or not, in Australia right now, these are data from the government, 25% of children between 2 and 17 years of age are overweight or obese. 54% of men and women aged 24 to 35, they are overweight or obese. Can you guess, men aged 45 to 54 in Australia, how many they are overweight or obese? Try.
I would hate to think. Tell me.
82.9%. 83% of men aged 45 to 54, according to governmental data, they are overweight or obese.
But that would be the highest figure ever in recorded history, wouldn't it?
It's getting worse.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
So why is it getting worse?
Because of this ultra-processed food, very low consumption of vegetables. When I was in US, there was this, that for people, vegetable was ketchup and potatoes, okay? And no beans, no whole grains, a lot of refined processed grains, lots of animal products, alcohol, high calorie in alcohol, no exercise, very little exercise. All these factors together basically are promoting these, I will say, pandemic of overweight or obesity, and unfortunately, centrally located fat, the fat around your stomach, basically your abdomen, that is producing all these hormones that are causing insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia, inflammation. And these factors are the main factors that are driving aging.
One of the strategies you recommend for better health is to consume a predominantly plant-based Mediterranean-like diet. Tell us about the origin story. Who discovered that the Mediterranean diet is king?
Ansel Keys basically was the first scientist who went to South Italy, and he found that basically after World War II, cardiovascular disease was non-existent. Nobody was dying of heart attack. And he was surprised. Impossible. In US, where I'm coming from, people, they're dying like flies of heart attacks. And in South Italy, there were no heart attacks. And then he started to study the Mediterranean diet and the cholesterol, blood pressure, and other factors that was responsible for these preventative. And now we have many, many randomized clinical trials confirming that, yes, a Mediterranean-like, because, Okinawans and other in China, in other regions of the world, you can have the same ingredients with different taste, different type of varieties. It's promoting health.
And it's almost like there'll be a version of that diet that works for you but has the same medical benefits. But,
Yes.
You grew up in Italy. Was this the diet that you grew up eating?
Yes, exactly. And by the way, my father is from North Italy, so he has a typical North European diet. In fact, in the family of my father, there is a lot of heart attacks, a lot of problems, stroke, because being from North Italy, meat, butter, milk, pork was very heavy. Instead of my mom is from South Italy, from Calabria, and there food was lots of different type of vegetables, whole grains, beans, fish, no refined processed food, and there is a huge difference in health
And
outcomes.
when they married, did your mother control the diet after that point?
Yes.
How important is food in a family, and a family in a sense prioritising food and eating well together, and as your mother taught you how to eat, your responsibility to generations ahead?
It's extremely important, the social aspect of eating healthy food and cooking healthy food, learning how to cook healthy food. It's extremely important. And it has also this sense of belonging, of family, of traditions. Because at the end of the story, we try to imitate what other people do. So if we really want to make a change in our society, that's why education and changing the primary healthcare model is extremely important, because then people, they tend to imitate. Think about smoking, 50, 60 years ago, every single male was smoking. Nowadays, I don't say it's completely eliminated, but, very few people that I know are smoking.
It strikes me there's this gap between the world you articulate and the world that you actually experience and what your research says is wise, to the lived experience of so many of us in Australia with the high levels of obesity that we've already talked about. One way that people have attempted to lose weight is through intermittent fasting. That's been a phenomenon over the last decade. 5-2 diet, time-restricted diet. If we know we need to eat better and to lose weight, and that's a driver of our improved health, what's a wise approach? What's a good start? What should we be thinking about?
First of all is exercise. Without exercise, it is impossible to sustain a healthy weight. And the reason why we publish that is when you lose weight with diet, you lower the thyroid hormones and you lower your resting metabolic rate and you lose muscle mass. And then once you get tired, you get off the diet, you regain your body weight with interest, but you regain mostly fat, not the muscle.
So let me see if I understand that. If you simply reduce your calories
With diet,
any diet, you get tired, worn out, lose willpower, can't sustain the diet.
You lower the resting metabolic rate because you lower the thyroid hormones. And therefore, basically, by lowering your metabolic rate, you are basically due to regain the weight. Instead of if you exercise, you keep your resting metabolic high, your skeletal muscle is fit, and you have more mitochondria that are these organelles that are burning calories that are pumping.
So it's not the exercise helping you lose more calories, but what the exercise does to your metabolic resting rate.
Absolutely. We did a study where a lot of people, they think, exercise can help you maintain your body weight, but cannot induce weight loss, or at least considerable weight loss. We did a study in US when I was in US, and exercising 1 hour a day, 6 days a week at 72% of your maximal heart rate resulted in a 8% weight loss in a year, but most importantly, a 40% reduction in abdominal fat.
Incredible. What about intermittent fasting? Are you a supporter of that?
Think about an orchestra. If I ask you, I want to play Mahler Fifth Symphony, but I only want to use one instrument. No way. You need all the instruments in the right balance, each one playing their own parts, and the director then is putting them together to have this beautiful symphony. So if you want to lose weight, the 5-2 diet works. But I can just feed you with bread and water and you're going to lose weight, but you're going to die of malnutrition in 3-4 years. So again, health and longevity, not weight loss. Health and longevity is a symphony. And there are different elements, components, ingredients that each one of us, because each one of us is different, and therefore, we have to design our best cocktail of interventions that is going to help us to achieve these optimal health and longevity and well-being, because it's not only metabolic health, physical health, but emotional health and spiritual health are as important as basically your physical and metabolic health.
Okay, I'm going to turn on my stove on medium. Start with the olive oil. Once it's nice and hot, we're going to add our onion, garlic, star anise, celery, and carrot. So we want to cook the vegetables till they get a bit translucent, but we want to be careful not to burn the garlic. The reason we put star anise in this dish is because the flavor molecules that come from star anise react with allium, such as onion and garlic, to create more meaty flavors. At this point, we can go in with our tomato and miso paste. So we're going to cook this for a couple of minutes, being careful not to get anything stuck to the bottom of the pot. And then we're going to deglaze with the white wine. It smells beautiful. You do want to get as much of the white wine reduced to get as much of the alcohol out, but it does do for a great scent in the kitchen. Developing the recipes with the nutritional concepts that we have to uphold is a little challenging for a chef that comes from a commercial background. In commercial cookery, you're all about making it tasty, but here there are certain ingredients that you want to minimize and other ingredients you want to maximize. So what I try to do is obviously minimize on any added sugar, minimize on animal proteins, and minimize on salt, which I have to say salt is probably the hardest thing to minimize, especially for someone that likes salt like myself. There's no way to get around it. You just have to adjust your palates to like things with less salt. But there are ingredients that you can use and be smart with, such as miso, fermented products that are naturally rich in umami, such as pecorino cheese, Parmesan cheese, tomato that has been cooked for a long period of time, which develops umami in itself. This gives you the feeling of something that is moreish and almost salty without it actually being salty.
Luigi, you're an eminent researcher in this field. You're a well-known global speaker on these events. You're a published author. But one of the things in this era is that everybody has an opinion. And so if I go on YouTube or TikTok, there are all the influencers with all the advice. Are you worried that whilst people are more and more desperate for knowledge around these areas, that quality knowledge is harder to find amidst all the noise?
Absolutely. There is a lot of noise on socials, and it's dangerous because most people are ignorant on even understanding what are the results of an epidemiological study versus a randomized clinical trial. Preclinical study in yeast, worms, rodents versus a trial in humans. Is this study powered enough or not? People don't understand. So they just read the title or maybe the results, the findings, and then they conclude that something is doing, but they don't have the understanding. They are not able to read a scientific paper. They are not able to understand, that a study with 20 people is not powered to give you a solid answer to your question. And so that's why, what we are doing here at the University of Sydney is extremely important, because not only we are trying to help both students and patients to understand how they can use this beautiful instrument that is a healthy diet, healthy cooking, exercise, how you use your mind, to promote your health, but also the instruments to read data so that when someone on socials tells you that, this diet saved my life, the question is, tell me, where are the data?
Luigi, there's an old line, physician, heal thyself. I can just tell you, you are the embodiment of all that you speak. And I know in the previous conversations that I've had with you around the university, this is a real passion for you, and you really feel like you have these tools, this evidence in your hands that could make a transforming difference to so many people if they can learn what the research has taught you.
Absolutely. And it is also going to make a major change in the sustainability of our nation, because otherwise we're not going to have enough financial resources to provide a high quality care for everybody.
At this point, it's already starting to look quite delicious, but most of the wine has evaporated. We're going to go in with the rest of the ingredients, being the lentils, the walnuts, the thyme, balsamic vinegar, chopped tomatoes, and vegetable stock. From here, we just let it simmer for about 30 to 40 minutes until it's ready to go. This is now thickened up nicely. Let's have a taste. Delicious. I don't even need to add any salt. All we need to do now is toss it through some pasta, and we have a delicious meal.
I'm Mark Scott, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Sydney, and that's Marzio Lanzini, Chef in Residence at the Charles Perkins Centre. And I've been talking to nutrition and longevity expert, Professor Luigi Fontana. And you can head to the show notes if you want to see any of Chef Marzio's healthy recipes and learn more of the programs available at the Charles Perkins Centre. If you enjoyed this episode of The Solutionists, make sure you stroll back in your feed, because we've got plenty of episodes for you to listen to right now. And if you want to hear about the solutions to everything from heat stress to eating disorders, follow The Solutionists in your podcast app right now. The Solutionists is a podcast from the University of Sydney, produced by Dead Set Studios. This episode was recorded at the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences Media Room, and our thanks to the technical staff here.